Pac-Man has been played more than 10 billion times. Pac-Man has been adopted for several for cell phones, Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation. It has even inspired an animated film, TV series, and merchandise as memorabilia lines. According to Bandai Namco, the idea for Pac-Man's iconic design was inspired by pizza. I didn't know this. The name comes from the Japanese phrase paku paku to describe the sound of the Pac-Man eating dots. Wow. Once again, if you're my age, video games to kids back in 78, 79 were pretty much like crack to crackheads. Well, I mean, like when video games hit, video arcades in particular, when video arcades hit, and yes, for young people, we didn't have, gaming systems in our houses that were so, technologically advanced that they were just as good as, the big stand-up machines out in arcades. No, you actually had to go to a place where they had the arcades, and for you to play one game, you had to put 25 cents of your mama and them hard-earned money into it. Right. And, man, I remember when the arcade opened up in my hometown, man. It was like the biggest thing ever. And they actually opened it up in this little space not too far from the middle school. And we would walk to it after school, man. And it was the greatest thing ever, man. And the biggest video game, period. And I think Miss Pac-Man actually became more popular than Pac-Man. But Pac-Man, the phenomenon of Pac-Man was just crazy. It started off the revolution of video games. Big time. So rest in peace. Rest in peace. Rest in peace to the inventor of Pac-Man. That was crazy, man. I mean, that was like the first game that you had on the Atari 2600. The Atari 2600 was kind of like the first video console that kids in America had in their house, and the rest is history. The rest is history. These video games today, man, it's crazy. The video games that we have on our phones, like they're like a million times better than the video games that we had on that Atari 2600. You look at that Atari 2600, man, and what it took to get that thing in your house. You had to buy the cartridge, and it was bootlegged as hell. It had the 3-man football, and now you look at John Madden on your iPhone that looks just like an NFL game, like a real-life NFL game, real-life players, real-life plays. It's come so much in the last 30 years or so, man. And Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Man, in particular in this case, man, were the big, big games back in the day. Yes, sir. From RC, y'all remember the X's and O's football games at the arcade? Yes, I do. From T-Dub convenience stores and lay your quarter on the glass and wait your turn. Yes, right. So there was this culture in video game playing at the arcade where so many people wanted to play, and there was a line of people. You put your quarter up on the game. There was this little spot on the top of the game that conveniently held quarters. And so you put your game up like you got rides. Like in basketball when you were a kid, you got rides, you got necks. It was the same thing with video games. You just had to wait your turn. Simple as that. You had to just wait your turn, man. Put your quarter up there kind of like we do in pool, where you put your money up on the table and you got the next game in pool. Same way with video games. From Loose Neck Sai, he says, I had the original Pac-Man on Atari that had a big-ass block as the fruit pill, and I thought it was the best thing made. Then I got the ColecoVision Donkey Kong, and it changed the game. Right. First it was Atari. And you're listening to the Doug Stewart Show. First it was Atari. Then it was ColecoVision, I think, was the next thing. Then you had Nintendo. Nintendo came along next. Then you had Sega Genesis. Then you had, what was next? What's the name of that game console? I can't even think of it right now. Black or whatever. Then you had Xbox. Xbox came after that. Sony PlayStation. So you had PlayStation came first, and then you had the Xbox, and they pretty much still dominate today. But yeah, there's definitely a long a long history of video game consoles in people's houses. From Loose Neck Side, Amigo sounds like something a ninja catch from a skeezer that penicillin won't cure. That's funny. And I said it earlier, and you're listening to the Doug Stewart Show. I knew a lot of people from other parts of the country, and I think Loose Neck Side might be in Texas or something like that. They won't get it because there's kind of like a culture of music in different cities. So I'm sure in Dallas or Houston or wherever, KK's, I'm looking at his profile pic, KK Side, Loose Neck Side is from. There might be some local artist that they play a lot on the radio around there that I'm not familiar with. And because you're not into this new rap thing in 2017, which I totally get once again, you're not familiar with the Migos. But they're kind of a big thing right now. And y'all just poo-pooed on the name Bad and Bougie for the Atlanta Falcons. I like that name. Let's see. From Sensational, ain't nobody give a damn about that song until Donald Glover mentioned it. How did he mention it? Are you talking about in the TV show Atlanta? Is that the same Glover guy that you're talking about? From Chuchi, not Bonet's birthday. There was a system called Spectrum that I think came out before Atari. Okay, I can't remember that. I do know before Atari, you had like computer games like Commodore 6400, and they had a couple of games in there. Oh, even before that, you had Pong. You remember Pong was the tennis thing with the two lines? And they had the big line in the middle that was supposed to be the net, and they had this little ball that you hit back and forth like tennis. And I think Pong was kind of like standalone. Okay, so you had Commodore 64 with whatever bootleg games that they had, which was just basically sticks and lines. And then you had Pong. Then you had Atari 2600 and on and on and on and on. Yeah. I mean, there was something before Atari. But Atari is the thing that kind of changed the game from Rel the Intern Scott, and television was the truth. Oh, yeah, when the television came out, like in television took the football play to like another level. Like each time a new system came out, it took, football, which is the primary thing me and my brother played from the beginning of video games till today. We started off with Atari with the three little fat little men, and then we went to somebody in our neighborhood. We didn't have it in television. Somebody in our neighborhood or somebody that we knew from school that played on our little football team or something, they got it in television. And then so we made it a point for our parents to take us over to that person's house so we could play that in television football. And then you got Nintendo with Tecmo Bowl. And so it all progressed until what we have today, which is basically like you actually being out on the football field with NFL players. Yeah, that's crazy. From Mandale Leon in the chat room on Spreaker.com says, Doug, how about electric football? Yeah, what about electric football? I mean, the absolute worst thing ever. We were so, primitive. We were so primitive back in 1975 before video games. So for people that don't know, and I do a lot of explaining around here, I'm the resident historian. For people that don't know, and you may have seen it in passing online or something, there was this thing called electric football where it was an actual physical football field. And it was probably about, 2 feet long, a foot wide. And it was supposed to be a football field. An actual physical thing that you picked up and touched and move around. And they had these little, football players that were like football statues, like little football statues. And they had 2 teams, and you'd start your team off on one side, and the other person would put their players out on this thing, and it shook. It vibrated. And when you cut it on, and you had your players on this little, vibrating football field, they just vibrate around, and they just run around in circles, and they go backwards, and they go forward. You couldn't run no damn plays on electric football. Now, this was something that my older cousins had, electric football. I never had an electric football game, but my older cousins that live, 50 yards down the street from me where I grew up, they actually my granddaddy actually bought them an electric football game. So this is probably like 1975, 76, something like that. And electric football, in a nutshell, was the worst football game ever. Ever! And basically what it did is it made you use your imagination. You had to imagine that your player scored a touchdown. You had to imagine that Roger Staubach threw a 75-yard touchdown pass to Drew Pearson. You had to imagine. You had to imagine that O.J. Simpson took the ball on a sweep and ran 50 yards for a score. You had to imagine that the Pittsburgh Steelers defense and L.C. Greenwood and I don't know, whatever defensive player, Jack Ham and all of those cats made a big tackle. That's what it did for us back in the 70s. It made us use our imagination. The absolute dumbest shit ever. Man, we've come such a long way as a society. We have come such a long way as a society where kids were happy. And back in the time, we were happy as hell to play electric football. I mean, we were. I mean, it was a big thing that I'd go to my granddaddy's house and my cousins would be over there and they'd have that electric football and we'd sit there Indian style. Maybe I can't say Indian style in 2017. We sit there, crisscross applesauce, with our legs crossed, sitting down, looking at this dumbass electric football game. My progress actually, a lot of times, is actually good. I know I'm get off my lawn guy. And I rail against these young kids today, man. But progress a lot of times is actually good. Yeah. Going from dumbass electric football to Madden 2017, which is phenomenal. Progress is actually good. When we get back from the break, man, Roger Goodell answers questions about Deflategate by punk-ass Dan Shaughnessy. We'll get into that up next. The Doug Stewart Show.
You never even heard of one such, and never seen no one such until you live on the run. But you can't see the way the bullets come, though some will.